Men waste their lives chasing affection, while women quietly govern the terms of desire. But what if you could reverse the balance? Seizing control not through charm, but through strategy. In this lesson, I will expose the cold mechanics by which any woman can be bent to your design without her ever realizing whose hand guides her fate. Power does not rest in strength of body, nor in the sweetness of words, but in the ability to shape another's mind without resistance. Women, like men, are bound by invisible strings of fear, vanity, and desire. The wise man does not argue with these forces. He bends them to serve his will. In this discourse, I will strip away illusion and reveal the tactics of influence that lie beneath romance, affection, and passion. These are not lessons for the sentimental, but for those who understand that in every bond, there is a master and there is a subject. Vanity. It is the most delicate weakness in the human soul, and yet the strongest chain by which you may bind another. Consider this: men often imagine women are moved by love, by affection, by some pure sentiment of devotion. Yet, strip away the poetry, and you will find a simpler truth. What most women crave is to feel exceptional, to believe they are different from the rest, to imagine that in your eyes they stand above all rivals. And here lies your instrument of control. Ask yourself, what is more powerful? To give a woman gifts of gold and jewels, or to convince her that she herself is the jewel? What endures longer? The sparkle of a diamond, or the conviction that her beauty, her wit, her very presence is irreplaceable? History confirms this. Kings held power over entire realms, yet they too bent themselves for the flattery of a single courtesan who mastered their vanity. Think of Cleopatra. Did she conquer Caesar with armies? No. She conquered him by making him believe he was the chosen man of destiny who alone could possess her. She elevated his self-image and, in turn, secured her survival. You must understand, vanity is not a surface trait. It runs deeper than desire. To touch vanity is to touch the core of identity. And when you control identity, you control behavior. But how do you exploit it? Not by showering constant praise, no. Excessive flattery is like cheap coin. It loses its value when spent too freely. Instead, you must give recognition in measured doses, precisely when it strengthens your position. Picture this: she dresses in a way meant to provoke admiration. The common man will tell her she is beautiful. He is predictable and therefore invisible. You, however, choose a different path. You notice not what she expects, but what she secretly wishes to be seen. Perhaps it is her intelligence, her subtle wit, or the way she carries herself in silence. By naming the hidden quality, you set yourself apart. You become the mirror in which she longs to see herself, and once you become that mirror, she cannot turn away. This is psychology, not romance. Every woman contains an image of herself she longs to believe. The cunning man uncovers it, amplifies it, and reflects it back until she depends upon him for confirmation. You are not merely a lover. You are the arbiter of her worth. Now consider the strategy of withholding. A single compliment, placed at the perfect moment, carries more weight than 100 careless ones. When you remain silent while others flatter her, she will crave your recognition above all. Your silence itself becomes power, because she will wonder what you see that others do not. Do you see the brilliance? By rationing affirmation, you create hunger. And hunger is the leash that keeps her circling you. This method echoes a principle from statecraft. A ruler does not tax his people constantly, he takes sparingly, ensuring they are grateful when spared, fearful when burdened. So too with vanity. You give little, but make it seem precious. You create a debt she feels compelled to repay with loyalty, attention, even submission. But beware, vanity must be guided, not destroyed. If you openly expose her weakness, she will resent you. If you challenge her beauty or intellect directly, she will seek vengeance. Subtlety is the art. You must allow her to believe that she shines because of herself, while never realizing it is you who polish the mirror. Reflect for a moment. How many men chase women with desperate flattery, hoping to win favor? They are beggars at the gate. You are not to be a beggar. You are to be the gatekeeper. She should seek your approval, not the other way around. So let me ask you, will you waste your power in clumsy declarations? Or will you become the silent judge whose rare acknowledgement holds more weight than gold? Remember, this vanity is the strongest cord, yet it must remain invisible. Once she sees the chain, she will rebel. But if she believes the chain is her own choice, she will wear it proudly. In every woman, vanity is the key. And once you hold the key, you no longer knock at the door, you own the house. But this is only the first step. Vanity awakens desire, yes, but desire, once kindled, must be controlled. And the next strategy is not to give, but to withhold. Abundance breeds contempt. Scarcity breeds desire. This is one of the simplest, and yet most ignored, truths of human nature. What is given too freely loses its worth. What is withheld becomes irresistible. Consider this carefully. A woman does not long for what is placed endlessly at her feet. She longs for what she cannot easily reach. She does not chase the man who floods her with attention, but the one whose silence makes her wonder. Why? Because the mind is not moved by abundance. It is moved by tension, by uncertainty, by the fear of loss. It is hunger, not satisfaction, that keeps the heart awake at night. History provides endless proof. When rulers showered their subjects with generosity, the people grew complacent, even ungrateful. But when those same rulers withheld privileges, granting them rarely and at their own command, the people begged, they worshipped, they obeyed. The wise prince understands this paradox, and so must you. Now, apply this to the realm of desire. A man who gives constant affection, constant reassurance, constant presence, teaches a woman to devalue him. She grows accustomed, and what is familiar ceases to excite. His love becomes like water, always available, always taken for granted. But the man who withholds, who vanishes into silence at the moment she expects him most, plants a seed of uncertainty in her mind. That uncertainty grows into hunger. Hunger becomes obsession, and obsession becomes control. Let us take an example. A suitor writes daily to the woman he seeks. His words flow endlessly, his compliments are predictable. At first, she smiles, but soon, his presence is like background noise, always there, never missed. Another man writes rarely. He does not answer at once. He delays, he makes her wait. She feels the sting of absence, the ache of wondering what occupies his thoughts. Which man does she think about more, one always speaking, or the one whose silence forces her to imagine? This is no accident. It is design. Psychology reveals the same principle. The brain assigns higher value to things that are scarce, uncertain, or inconsistent. The variable reward system, known to gamblers and rulers alike, creates the strongest addiction. You must not give affection like a constant stream. You must deliver it unpredictably, withholding long enough to create doubt, then returning with just enough warmth to feed the craving. This rhythm ensnares more deeply than constant presence ever could. Do you see the elegance of this tactic? By giving less, you are worth more. By withholding, you make her pursue. By remaining distant, you draw her closer. But beware, this must be executed with precision. Too much withholding, and she will grow cold, believing you indifferent. Too much giving, and she will grow bored, believing you conquered. The art lies in balance. Presence must alternate with absence, like the tide that pulls the ship both forward and back. Think of the hunter. If he gives the hound constant meat, the hound grows lazy, unmotivated. But if he withholds, feeding just enough to spark hunger, the hound hunts with fury. So too with desire. You must create the hunger that sharpens pursuit. Ask yourself, when was the last time you made someone wait for you? Truly wait, without apology, without excuse. Did you see how their eagerness increased? Did you see how their mind raced to fill the silence with fantasies, doubts, questions? That is the true battlefield. Not in what you say, but in what you refuse to say. The greatest rulers of old knew that presence is cheap, but absence is priceless. A king who shows himself daily loses his aura. A king who is rarely seen makes every appearance a spectacle. Should you not do the same? Should you not train her to see your attention as a treasure rather than a right? You must become rare. You must become uncertain. You must allow her to feel the cold of your distance so that the warmth of your return burns brighter. Remember this law: what is scarce becomes sacred, and what is sacred becomes untouchable. So, I ask you, will you waste yourself in constant availability, or will you rule through absence, making her hunger for every word, every glance, every gesture? Withholding is not cruelty. It is strategy. It is the art of shaping desire without ever forcing it. And once hunger is created, it opens the door to something even more binding: fear. Fear is sharper than love, yet if wielded carelessly, it turns from a weapon into poison. Many men believe that to control a woman, one must dominate openly, impose force, or make loud threats. But brute fear is unstable. It provokes resistance. It sparks rebellion. A woman who feels crushed will one day rise against you, no matter how long she has bowed her head. The wiser path is different. You must employ fear not as a whip striking the flesh, but as a shadow cast across the mind. Fear is most effective when it is subtle, quiet, almost invisible. Consider the rulers of old. A tyrant who spilled blood in the streets survived for a season, but the ruler who let whispers of punishment linger in the air endured for generations. Caesar Borgia executed with such precision that men trembled at his presence, not because they saw constant violence, but because they knew the possibility always hovered nearby. Fear was not in the blow, it was in the anticipation. Now ask yourself, what is more binding, a threat shouted in anger or a silence heavy with consequence? With women, the same law applies. To instill subtle fear is to plant a thought. If I lose him, I lose something I cannot replace. It is not terror of harm, but terror of loss. The fear of absence. The fear of abandonment. The fear of no longer being chosen. Think carefully. Have you ever noticed how a woman reacts when your attention shifts, even slightly? A glance at another, a delayed response, a sudden withdrawal. That tiny fracture of certainty sends a tremor through her heart far more than any shouted word could. She begins to wonder, am I enough? Am I slipping? That is the fertile ground where fear grows and where control takes root. Psychologists call this insecurity. Strategists call it leverage. You must never seek to destroy her sense of worth, for a broken subject is of no use. But you must remind her, subtly, that your presence is not guaranteed, and that losing you is a possibility she must avoid at all costs. Let me tell you a story. A merchant once courted a woman with endless gifts, constant words, daily devotion. She grew bored, confident in his obedience, certain that he would never leave. Another man, colder in manner, never insulted her, never raised his voice, yet carried an air of indifference. He did not chase. He could disappear without notice. She feared his silence, she feared his distance, she feared his ability to live without her. Which man do you think she clung to? Which man's absence made her restless in the night? You already know the answer. Fear does not require cruelty. It requires uncertainty. The quiet knowledge that you are not entirely hers, that your approval, your attention, your presence can fade at any time. This is what keeps her awake, keeps her striving, keeps her loyal. But here lies the delicate art. If fear grows too strong, it collapses into despair. If she believes she has already lost you, she will cease to care. The secret is moderation. A taste of fear, not a flood. A drop of poison, not a goblet. Ask yourself, when do you pull away? When do you leave silence in place of words? When do you let her wonder if your eyes rest elsewhere? If you master this rhythm, you master her heart. Remember, even in war, the most effective generals are those who use fear sparingly. An army that is terrified will collapse. An army that respects and slightly fears its commander will obey with devotion. So too with desire. You must not inspire terror, but respect laced with insecurity. In the end, what binds her is not what you give, but what you withhold. Not the punishment delivered, but the possibility of losing what she treasures. And so I ask you, what is more powerful? To chain her with declarations of love, or to let her chain herself with the quiet dread of losing you? Use fear subtly, not brutally. Let it linger like a shadow she cannot escape. Let her strive to keep your light, fearing the darkness of your absence. For once fear has taken hold, loyalty is no longer a choice. It becomes instinct. But this is not the final instrument. Fear, when mastered, must be joined with another weapon. One even more dangerous, the art of confusion. Confusion is the soil in which control takes root. A woman who understands you fully cannot be mastered, but a woman who is never entirely certain of your intentions, your feelings, your limits, becomes bound to you through curiosity, doubt, and the constant need to resolve the mystery. This is the art of emotional misdirection. It is not deception in its crude form, nor blatant lying. Rather, it is the subtle manipulation of perception. You speak one way, act another. You give warmth, then withdraw it. You leave her wondering whether you are devoted or distant, predictable or elusive. Why does this work? Because the human mind craves certainty. The lack of it gnaws at the heart. It drives endless speculation, and speculation is obsession. History illustrates this principle well. The greatest leaders did not reveal their every plan. They cloaked intentions behind gestures, staged contradictions, left allies and enemies alike guessing. Julius Caesar would act with kindness in one moment, cruelty in the next, so none could define his true nature. That unpredictability gave him power, for men feared the unknown more than the sword itself. Now, take this lesson and place it in the arena of desire. When a woman believes she knows you entirely, she grows comfortable. Comfort breeds complacency, and complacency is the death of passion. But when you cloak yourself in contradictions, when you let her taste your warmth, only to find it replaced with silence, you awaken in her a storm of questions. Does he truly care? Why does he withdraw? Am I losing him, or has he already chosen another? These questions chain her mind to you more tightly than affection ever could. Psychologists have a term for this: intermittent reinforcement. The same principle that keeps a gambler pulling the lever of a slot machine despite endless losses. He does not quit because the next pull might bring reward. The unpredictability keeps him addicted. Apply this to human connection, and you will see why constant clarity weakens, while strategic confusion enslaves. Imagine this: you take her to dinner. Your words are sharp, your attention focused. She feels your presence entirely. The next day you vanish into silence. No message, no call. She begins to replay every word from the night before, searching for hidden meaning. She imagines possibilities, invents explanations. She becomes a gambler in your game, pulling at the lever of your silence, desperate for another reward. Do you see? You have given her no promise, no declaration. Yet she has imprisoned herself in the endless cycle of doubt and hope. This tactic is not cruelty, it is mastery. You are not destroying her, you are shaping her dependence. The mind that chases answers becomes bound to the one who withholds them. But beware, misdirection must be precise. If it becomes too obvious, she will see manipulation and recoil. If it becomes too extreme, she may break free entirely. The art lies in balance. Enough clarity to give hope, enough contradiction to keep her uncertain. Think of the stage magician. He distracts the audience with one hand while the other performs the trick. The audience knows something is hidden, yet cannot resist the illusion. You must be the same. Let your gestures distract, let your silences confuse, and she will spend her strength trying to solve what was never meant to be solved. Ask yourself, would you rather be predictable, like the dull man who speaks plainly? Or would you rather live in her thoughts endlessly, not because of what you said, but because of what you refused to explain? Control is never about giving answers. It is about creating questions. The more questions she has, the more tightly she binds herself to you. This is why even rejection, if delivered ambiguously, can deepen attachment. A sharp no closes a door, but a vague not now keeps her waiting at the threshold, hoping, doubting, longing. And so, you must master emotional misdirection. Give affection, then withdraw. Reveal part of yourself, then turn to shadow. Allow her to believe she is close, but never let her touch the center. For a woman who thinks she knows you will take you for granted. But a woman who never fully grasps you will never stop chasing. And once she chases, she is already yours. But confusion, while powerful, must be tempered with reward. To keep loyalty alive, one must sometimes grant what is desired, only to make it more precious by scarcity. This brings us to the next weapon, the art of rewarding sparingly and punishing silently. Power is not maintained through constant gifts, nor through loud punishments. It is maintained through balance, through giving just enough to bind loyalty, and withholding just enough to inspire fear. This is the art of rewarding sparingly and punishing silently. Consider a ruler who showers his subjects with endless rewards. What happens? Gratitude fades. The gifts lose meaning. What was once rare becomes expected. The people no longer see generosity, they see weakness. And when the ruler fails to give, resentment replaces loyalty. Now imagine another ruler. He gives rarely, and each gift feels like a miracle. A single coin seems like a treasure. A single smile, a favor, a word of praise. These become priceless because they are scarce. His subjects cling to him, hoping for another taste of his favor. That ruler does not spend lavishly, but commands devotion. You must act the same. With women, constant praise, constant reassurance, constant gifts. These are poison. They weaken your influence. They make your value common, predictable, cheap. But when you reward sparingly, when you offer a rare moment of tenderness or acknowledgement, you elevate its power. She learns to wait for your approval, to seek it, to fight for it. Ask yourself, which praise moves you more? The words of a flatterer who speaks daily, or the single nod of a man who rarely gives recognition? The rare approval carries the weight of gold. The same is true for her. But what of punishment? Here lies the greater art. Most men punish loudly. They shout, argue, accuse. They expose their anger like a weapon, but in doing so they reveal weakness. For anger betrays lack of control. Loud punishment gives her something to resist, something to fight against. The wiser way is silent punishment. Coldness, withdrawal, absence of warmth. You do not tell her she has erred. You allow her to feel it. You withdraw attention. You let silence become the weight on her shoulders. She will scramble to restore what was lost, not because you commanded her, but because the emptiness itself speaks louder than any words. This is psychology at its purest. The human heart dreads exclusion more than pain. Social creatures fear silence, neglect, indifference. To be ignored cuts deeper than to be struck. When you turn cold, you become the judge she cannot argue with, the executioner who leaves no trace of blood yet delivers the sharpest blow. Think of history again. A king who executed his enemies openly inspired rebellion. But a king who made men disappear quietly, without spectacle, inspired dread. No one could protest what they could not see. Fear spread like a fog. Silent punishment holds the same strength. Now imagine a scene. She offends you with a careless word, a broken promise, a disrespectful gesture. The ordinary man shouts, argues, storms. She dismisses him, for his anger exposes how much power she holds over his emotions. You, however, withdraw. You fall into silence. Your eyes grow colder. You do not argue. You do not explain. You simply vanish into distance. She feels it immediately. She senses the loss of your presence. And because you offered no explanation, her mind fills the silence with guilt, with fear, with desperate questions. She punishes herself far more effectively than you ever could. Do you see the elegance? Your punishment costs you nothing. You do not lower yourself into quarrels. You let her own mind be the battlefield, and she fights herself until she crawls back for your approval. But remember, punishment alone breeds despair. Reward alone breeds contempt. The secret lies in rhythm. When she earns your favor, grant it sparingly. Let her see that your warmth is a jewel, not a coin tossed in the street. When she falters, punish silently, letting her imagination inflict the wound. This balance ensures that she lives between craving and fear, between hope and uncertainty. And in that space, you hold absolute control. Ask yourself, would you rather she take your presence for granted, or would you rather she cherish every glance, every word, every rare gift of your approval? Would you rather she argue against your anger, or collapse under the weight of your silence? You already know the answer. Power rests not in how much you give, nor in how loudly you take away. Power rests in the precision with which you manage both, reward sparingly, punish silently, and she will never know whether to celebrate or tremble in your presence. But there remains an even higher weapon, one that shapes not just her behavior, but her entire view of the world itself. The weapon of framing reality. Reality is not what exists. Reality is what people believe exists. If you control belief, you control reality itself. And if you control reality, you control her. This is the principle of framing. He who defines the terms of perception defines the outcome. Consider politics. When a ruler names his war not as conquest, but as defense, he makes aggression appear as necessity. When he calls taxes a contribution, he turns burden into duty. Did the substance change? No. Only the frame. Yet the frame changes everything. Now look at desire. In a relationship, whoever defines the frame of reality holds the throne. If she believes your presence is a privilege, she treats you with reverence. If she believes your presence is guaranteed, she treats you with neglect. Which frame do you allow? The ordinary man lets the woman set the terms. If she says, "You are lucky to have me," he agrees, and he accepts the lower seat. But the cunning man sets the opposite frame. She is fortunate to be chosen. He never says it aloud, yet every gesture, every silence, every subtle act reinforces it. She absorbs this frame until she believes it, until her actions reflect it, until it becomes her reality. This is not arrogance, it is strategy. The man who does not control the frame becomes a prisoner of hers. Let us take an example. Imagine she cancels your plans. The ordinary man begs for another chance, confirming that her time is more valuable than his. But you, if you control the frame, respond not with complaint but with indifference. You continue as if nothing was lost, showing that your world does not orbit hers. At that moment, the frame shifts. She begins to wonder if she is the one being tested, if she is the one seeking your time. Do you see how subtle the game becomes? You did not argue. You did not beg. You did not even punish directly. You merely held your frame that your time is precious, that your value is unquestionable. And she adjusted to it. Psychology confirms this law. Human beings interpret events not as they are, but through the meaning imposed upon them. If you set the meaning, you set the reality. This is why propaganda endures, why religions govern hearts, why leaders inspire loyalty without proof. Belief is stronger than fact. And in personal dynamics, this is your greatest weapon. Think of it this way: if she cries, "You don't love me," and you rush to prove her wrong, you have accepted her frame. You play defense. But if you calmly say, "Love is shown in actions, not words, and I decide when to show it," you reverse the frame entirely. Now she defends herself, wondering if she has done enough. The power lies not in truth, but in who defines it. Reflect for a moment on history. Princes who framed their rule as divinely ordained were obeyed without question. Their subjects never asked if it was true. They simply accepted the frame. Likewise, if you frame yourself as the prize, the authority, the center, she will not ask if it is true. She will simply feel it and live within it. But beware, to control the frame requires discipline. If you waver, if you contradict yourself, if you slip into her definitions, the illusion collapses. A king who doubts his crown invites rebellion. A man who doubts his own frame invites chaos. So ask yourself, do you control the lens through which she sees you, or does she hand you hers? Do you define reality, or do you live in the one she crafts? The answer to this question is the measure of your power. Remember, to control the frame is to make your version of reality inescapable, to bend her perceptions so that even when she resists within the boundaries you have drawn. She cannot step outside them, for she no longer sees any world beyond them. And once you master this, you need not argue, you need not prove, you need not demand. She will move within the reality you created, believing it was her choice all along. This is the throne behind the throne, the power to dictate perception itself. But even the strongest frame requires one final element, for what cannot be fully seen can never be fully abandoned. And so, the last weapon is mystery. Nothing enslaves the human mind more than the unknown. A man who is fully revealed is a man fully conquered. His value declines with every detail, every confession, every secret surrendered. Once she believes she has mapped all of you, there is nothing left to chase, nothing left to imagine. Mystery, then, is your throne. Sit upon it, and she will circle endlessly, seeking to climb what she cannot reach. Consider the rulers of old. Kings wrapped themselves in ceremony, in symbols, in veils of secrecy. The crown, the throne, the guarded palace. These were not mere ornaments. They were tools of mystery. The king was not simply a man, he was an enigma cloaked in ritual. Subjects obeyed not because they knew him, but because they did not. They saw power in the distance, never within reach. So too must you cloak yourself. Ask yourself, why do women obsess over the man who tells them little, yet lose interest in the man who shares everything? Because imagination is more intoxicating than truth. The less you reveal, the more she invents. She fills the silence with her own fantasies, her own projections, her own desires. And those imagined versions of you are always greater than the mundane truth you might reveal. This is why confessions are dangerous. This is why overexposure kills attraction. If you speak endlessly of your thoughts, your fears, your daily routines, you strip away the aura. You make yourself common. But if you reveal little, if you remain unpredictable, she cannot stop searching, cannot stop chasing. Do you not see? Mystery is not emptiness, it is abundance. For what she cannot know, she will create. And what she creates will bind her more deeply than any reality you could hand her. Psychology confirms this truth. The human brain craves closure, yet hates uncertainty. When denied full knowledge, the mind becomes restless. It replays, it obsesses, it builds illusions. This is why the unopened letter is more tormenting than the harsh words it contains. This is why the man who remains unreadable becomes unforgettable. Let me give you a simple example. Two men pursue her. The first is open, direct, always available. She knows his mind, his heart, his schedule. She respects him, perhaps even admires him, but she does not dream of him. The second is distant. His words are few, his eyes reveal nothing. His life beyond her grasp. She wonders where he is, what he thinks, who else might have his attention. She feels both curiosity and unease, but most of all, she feels obsession. Which man holds power? Not the one who opened his book, but the one who remains a closed chapter. History again confirms this. Leaders who revealed their every thought lost authority. But those who cloaked themselves in mystery inspired both awe and fear. Napoleon said that a leader must keep a little bit of himself in reserve, something unknowable. The same law binds desire. Now reflect. Do you reveal too much? Do you hand away your secrets, your intentions, your plans, hoping she will reward your openness? If so, you have already surrendered, for she cannot revere what she fully knows. The art is balance. You reveal just enough to spark hope, but never enough to kill curiosity. You show part of the picture, but leave the rest in shadow. Every answer you give must open two more questions. Every gesture must suggest another layer beneath. In this way, she never feels secure, never feels finished, never feels as if she holds you completely. And remember, mystery is not silence alone. It is action without explanation. It is decision without justification. It is presence without full availability. She must sense that parts of you belong to a world beyond her reach, and it is that world she will endlessly chase. Ask yourself, do you want to be fully known and therefore dismissed? Or do you want to be partly hidden and therefore unforgettable? A woman will not abandon what she does not fully possess. She will return again and again, hoping for revelation, never realizing that the revelation will never come. That is the power of mystery. Hold back, leave shadows. Let silence speak louder than words. For it is not clarity that binds the heart. It is the endless hunger to know what cannot be known. And once you master this final weapon, you rise beyond mere control. You become the enigma, the throne itself, the power that can never be dethroned. But this, my student, is not the end. For once you sit upon the throne of mystery, the greater question emerges. How long can you keep it? Power is never seized with noise. It is taken in silence. To control others without their awareness is the highest mastery. You do not command them openly. You shape their choices so they believe they chose freely. You do not chain them. You make them hold the chain themselves. Ask yourself, What is more dangerous? The man who orders or the man who guides without being seen? Which leaves deeper marks, the visible whip or the invisible hand? Control is not in words shouted, but in thoughts planted. Not in force, but in influence. When you can direct another's will without their suspicion, you cease to compete with them. You rule them. And now I ask you, how will you wield this? Will you remain blind to the subtle levers of power, or sharpen your mind until others move at your silent command? If these truths disturb you, they are working. If they empower you, you are awakening. Comment your reflections below. Subscribe for more strategies. Share this with those who dare to see. The wise will act. The rest will remain controlled.